Jazzcast Pros.
Today, we are continuing the Power Move series. This isn't an episode that's going to be about one brand specifically, but a couple of brands that have this through line. How I wanted to start is by giving you a couple brand names and seeing if you can figure out what the through line is. The first one is Google. The second one is Kleenex. The third one is Chapstick. And the last one is Band-Aid. Can you figure out what all of those have in common? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about it. Maybe you need to pause it, because if you're like me, I would totally pause and be like, I can figure this out. So what I'm talking about today is the power of focus. Google is a brand, but you say, have you Googled it? I'm going to Google it. So it has turned into a verb. When someone sneezes, do you have any Kleenex? Not a tissue. If someone comes to you with a scrape, I have a closet full of Band-Aids, not an adhesive bandage. My lips are dry. I really could use some chapstick, not lip balm. So, as you may be picking up, the point of this episode is that these brands have dialed in so intensely. They are the default when you think about those things. When you have dry lips, you are looking for a chapstick, which is actually the brand. But they have become so immersed into our nomenclature that we don't even think, I need some lip balm. We think I need chapstick. Same thing with Band-Aids and Kleenex and Google. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the current or aspiring solopreneur, navigate the messy middle so you can make both an income and an impact. Hi, I'm Rashawn, and I love creating safe spaces for women to be courageous in their dreams. After spending a decade working in sales for a startup and talking with hundreds of other women entrepreneurs, I know it can be lonely, but you can do this. So pull up a seat. This is High Vibe Table Talks. And so what these companies did is they committed to one thing and did it really, really, really well. And so because this is part of the Power Move series, I'm going to kind of talk about things that these companies did really well and then how we can learn from them as solopreneurs. Because I know what you're going to say. I know the rebuttal you're going to give me because I've said it to myself. This is coming from someone who is an ADHD, multi-passionate entrepreneur who has had many ideas just today. And in the, going on 4 years of having this business, even this podcast has pivoted in what it has looked like. But what I will say is that I have niched down. Most entrepreneurs, and I'm sure that the people who created Chapstick didn't say, I'm going to get so good at having the best lip balm. That's what I'm going to be known for. There is trial and error. And all of the companies that are in this Power Move series have tried stuff and failed. And so it's not to say that, this podcast is a big proponent of the pivot. But what I will say is that what a lot of entrepreneurs do struggle with is being known for one thing. And they can be, and I say they, and I am included in that group because I have done it as well, and saying, I need more customers. And so what do other people need that I can create? That is a piece of it. There has to be a market for it. And that has to be in alignment with what you love to do, what you care about, what you're so good at that you could get lost in time doing it, lost in time talking about it. You could go on and on and on. And so there has to be a market for it. It has to be something that you really, really care about. And it has to be specific. If you try to be for everyone, you're going to end up being with no one. Think about that in the fact of just listening to this podcast. You may or may not be from Rochester, New York. I have more people listen to this podcast from Rochester, New York, because that is my network. And that isn't why you listen to it. It isn't like, I'm going to listen to this podcast because it's going to give me so many recommendations of things to do in Rochester, New York. That would be broadcasting, So the news is a broadcasting station because they have to have a lot of small segments about a lot of different things because they're casting to a broad network of people. podcasting is specific. And so you listen to this podcast because you like how I talk about things related to business and sales and entrepreneurship on a very specific level. And so it really is like niching down. And again, like I have niched down when it comes to the topics I talk about on this podcast just in the 2 years since starting it. And so regardless of how Chapstick started out, they didn't try to be, once they found that they were really good at creating lip balm, they didn't say, we should be a wellness brand or a cosmetic empire or let's go broader. They help dry lips and they do it better than anyone. I think that is really like the ultimate golden ticket. You know, really, I think when it comes down to it, the goal for sales and marketing is that when someone says, hey, I'm having a problem with this, you are top of mind, you're who they think of, and they think you're an expert. And so if people are having a conversation and someone's like, yeah, I just started this business, but I'm really having a hard time understanding the sales process and I don't really know how to get out there and sell this thing that I love to create. The idea is that my sales course is top of mind for that person. They go, I know exactly what you need, and here is what it is. When someone's creating a course, you're thinking of Amy Porterfield, and is there a course that I can take or something I can take from her in learning how to create a course, which is exactly what I did because she is known for creating courses. She hasn't always been known for that. That wasn't how she started out. But as she has evolved and pivoted, that is what she has niched down in. Again, when someone's starting a new business and they need some free resources, someone can be like, hey, listen to this podcast because this is what it has. Or I remember listening to this specific episode. You know, just this week, I'm a consultant for this other business and we were talking about cold calling. And I said, I'm going to listen to Jeffrey Gitomer's specific episode about the book Cold Calling Sucks and That's Why It Works, because that's going to help me pull some ideas and get some things from it. And so Jeffrey Gitomer is well known in sales. He's well known in cold calling. And he had an episode specifically around the book, around cold calling. And we had an entire meeting around things that were pulled from that specific podcast episode. And so that is the power of being known for that one thing. I always talk about how there are, entrepreneurship is a cycle. And so when you start off, you are in ideation phase. And so you have this idea, you think this will be really cool. You're throwing spaghetti against the wall. You are starting to align what people need and what you love doing, what your skills are tailored to. And then once you kind of narrow that down, then you go into growth. Okay, how can I get more people to want this from me? Then you go into scaling. And so this is when you start to delegate. Maybe you grow your team. You start to find, okay, I can't wear all the hats anymore. So how do I start to create systems, put things in place so that I can take some stuff off of my plate? What is my zone of genius and how can I find things for other people's zone of genius that will help us scale? And then the last part is Mastermind. And so if you are in the ideation phase, this necessarily isn't for you because you haven't found like the thing. You haven't found what lights you up and there is a market for, down to specifically like how you're going to deliver it. Maybe Chapstick did start out saying, oh, like a lot of people have dry lips or dry skin and they tried different formulas and tried different vessels and tried, Google was not Google when it started and they tried a lot of different things. And so if you're in ideation and even kind of in growth, you still have to have a lot of room to pivot there because you just don't have the knowledge of building the business in a way that fits you and your lifestyle. I always talk about how building a business needs to be built around your life. Don't build your life around your business. And so pivoting down too early and saying, this is exactly what I'm going to do and this is exactly how I'm going to do it isn't going to be fair, because what if you are like, I am going to sell these beautiful candles and they're going to have these scents, and I'm going to go to markets in Rochester, New York to sell them. Then you do one market season and you're effing exhausted. Or you have a kid who plays sports and the festivals conflict with all the sports. Or you have a parent who is aging and gets sick and you have to take care of them. And you have caretaker's fatigue, or it just doesn't fit. Having the option to be able to pivot is very important, especially during those early times when you're still kind of a baby business owner. But when you do start to figure out what people want and what you can offer and what is in your zone of genius, really honing in on that and being known for that one thing can be a game changer for your business. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I have ADHD. I am multi-passionate. My brand has changed a lot. My offerings have changed a lot. In this podcast, I have talked about how I had to put down the Mastermind, how I had to put down the community platform that I was building. So again, I'm not saying that pivoting is a bad thing. I'm not, I can hear you saying but I have all these ideas. I have all these things that I want to do. I don't want to be put in a box. Don't stifle my creativity, Mershawn. I get it. But you can evolve, you can grow, but to really make the impact that you want to make right now, you have to find that one thing that people are going to know you for. And you have to sell and market and get clear on what that is, so that when people say, hey, I want to start a business, but I have no experience in selling. And if you don't sell, you don't have a business. Obviously, they're not going to say that right off the bat, but I should take a course on selling. And hopefully, if I do my things right, they're going to think of me. My podcast producer, if someone says, hey, I really want to start a podcast, I know who you should go talk to. Look up Jazzcast Pros. She's incredible. And so immediately, someone gets a new puppy. They rescue a dog. They get a new puppy. I'm like, I'm going to get them dough-faced dog treats on rotation so that it's easy and healthy and locally grown, all those sorts of things. So there are certain things when someone says, hey, I need this, I know how to solve that problem with them. And that is mastering branding, being top of mind, and being known for the one thing and niching down, which is what this episode is about. So what can you take from this as a solopreneur? This is the Power Move series, and Band-Aid, Google, Kleenex, Chapstick all have made power moves to be known for those things. So came up with a few brand positioning questions that you can ask yourself to really understand if you can corner a certain market, if you can be known for the one thing. So what problem do people always come to you for help with? When someone has a problem, they come looking for you and your guidance. How do you serve people with something that you actually enjoy? I would never say to provide your services for free, but what would you do even if you did have to do it for free? What is one thing that you offer that you will commit to refining, promoting? Again, that's refining. It's not pivoting, but it's really narrowing down and promoting, getting people to know that that is your product for the next 6 to 12 months. A lot of people in sales are like, oh, I sent out all these emails last week and no one got back to me. I heard crickets. Okay. 1 week is not a long enough time. 10 emails is not enough people. What can you commit to really going out and telling people about to where you feel like you promoting it ad nauseum for the next 6 to 12 months? And if you were able to close your eyes and be known for the one thing and being the go-to, what would it be? What do you want to be your Chapstick, your Netflix? What do you want to be your lane that you own and dominate? You don't need 10 offers. You don't need to speak to everybody. If you speak to everybody, you speak to no one. You don't need to help everybody. It's, something similar to there's so many things that are going on in this world that I want to care about. But what are The 3 things that if you could change for everybody, you would. And I think that that's where momentum is created. And then once you have momentum, once you have sales coming in, once you're known for that one thing, you have the space, capacity, bandwidth, money to then explore other things that you want to help people with. So how can you get known for that one thing? Even like on the co-working calls, there's times where people are like, oh, well, no one wants to buy what I have to offer. And it's, my offer has this and 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 this. And I can also help these. And it's like, whoa, take a breath. I get overwhelmed even hearing you talk about what you have to offer. How do you think other people feel when they come to your website or come to your social media or get on a call with you and you just like throw all the stuff at them that they could have? And they're like, well, I don't want that much stuff. I just want this thing. And so you're just creating confusion. You're creating more friction. And so narrow it down, become known for one thing, and then start to promote the hell out of that one thing. So what is going to be your chapstick moment? If you enjoyed listening to this episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with someone, left a review, or even sent me a message. I love getting little messages, whether it's on Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, wherever you find me, and hearing that this episode or this podcast in general is impactful. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.